Now, today's topic will interest those of you who struggle with mental health difficulties that you suspect were caused by a dysfunctional childhood. The focus is on complex PTSD, and I have created a questionnaire which will give you a clear idea on whether you are living with this disorder or not. Now, how can we clearly define whether we suffer with complex PTSD? Complex PTSD, otherwise known as CPTSD, is a result of repeated and/or prolonged traumas. Some of the symptoms of this disorder include emotional dysregulation, emotional flashbacks, chronically low self-esteem, toxic shame, negative core beliefs, hyperarousal, avoidance, dissociation, feeling a constant sense of emptiness or hopelessness or both, and lastly, feeling distrustful towards others. Now, childhood CPTSD is unfortunately underdiagnosed and misunderstood. It is often only acknowledged as a result of extreme forms of child abuse, such as severe neglect, violence, sexual abuse, etc. It should also be acknowledged as a result of more covert dysfunction and abuse in the family home. Now, typically we can identify two types of abuse within the family home. We have overt abuse and we have covert abuse. Now, overt abuse is when, for instance, a social worker would enter a child's home and they would see both the parents high on drugs or drunk out of their minds, with the child in the corner, wearing dirty clothes, not having been fed, where the house is a complete tip and it's just complete chaos and the child is crying. Now that image is what you would expect of an overtly abusive family home. However, you, on the other hand, also have covert abuse. Now, in covert abuse, everything may seem stable to outsiders in this family, but behind closed doors, this family is full of dysfunction. There is excessive criticism, there might be fundamentalism, emotions are not allowed, children are parentified, they are given too much responsibility at too young an age. One or both parents may be mentally ill or anxious, and generally the family seems stable. But there is a lot of covert abuse happening behind closed doors, whereas in overt abuse you will have things like alcoholism and addiction, which are very obvious, physical abuse where the child may have bruises, there will also be extreme neglect. But there is also sexual abuse, which is both overt and covert. In an overtly abusive home, sexual abuse is when the parents physically abuse the child with intercourse or oral sex, whereas covert abuse is when the parent exposes the child to sexual acts. So the parent, for instance, may masturbate in front of the child, or the parent will encourage the child to watch the parents have sex. Now, both these types of sexual abuse, both overt sexual abuse and covert sexual abuse, lead to toxic shame and low self-esteem. And the child grows up thinking that her or his feelings do not matter and that she or he is an object that is used to meet the needs of other adults. As you can see in the image that I have in the video, both overt abuse and covert abuse lead to CPTSD and leads to the same difficulties when the child becomes an adult. So they will have negative core beliefs, they will suffer from depression and anxiety, attachment difficulties, intimacy difficulties, low self-worth, toxic shame, addiction, hypervigilant, and emotional flashbacks. And of course, if it was overtly abusive, then there will also be visual flashback or physical flashbacks. Now, how is CPTSD diagnosed, although it isn't listed in the DSM-5. Now, it may not be listed in the DSM-5, but complex post-traumatic stress is otherwise known as childhood post-traumatic stress. Now, in the following questionnaire that you will see in this video, you will hopefully be able to identify whether you have CPTSD. Through my own research over the years, I believe that the more times you choose yes as your answer in this questionnaire, the higher the likelihood that you suffered trauma in your childhood. So let's introduce the questionnaire. There are 40 questions. Please answer yes, maybe, or no. And if you are somebody who has already had therapy and maybe you've resolved some of the issues that you may see in the following questions, I would suggest that you please still select the yes answer, as these questions apply to your lifetime up until now. So let's begin. Number 1. I tend to feel a sense of emptiness most of the time. Number 2. I feel depressed and/or anxious often. Number 3. My parents or primary caregivers were quick to anger, were controlling, were neurotic, were unavailable, were hurtful, or depressed, or maybe a combination of all these. Number 4. I often feel uncomfortable in my own skin, as if there is something inherently wrong with me. Number 5. I tend to isolate myself. Number 6. I find it hard accepting things when they go well. I don't trust that they will stay that way. Number 7. I tend to struggle through things rather than enjoy them. Number 8. I have trouble feeling joy even on joyous occasions. Number 9. I seem to struggle with addiction or seem to use alcohol, drugs, sex, food, etc. to cope with my depression or emptiness. Number 10. I tend to have difficulty feeling emotions and I might sometimes feel numb or dissociate. Number 11. I tend to miss red flags when I am around harmful people. Number 12. I have difficulty trusting others. Number 13. I seem to attract dysfunctional people. Number 14. I tend to have problems with sleep, food, and energy levels. So for instance, it might be that I'm not sleeping enough, that I'm feeling exhausted all the time, that I'm eating too much, or that I'm starving myself. Number 15. I don't seem to understand my wants and/or my needs. Number 16. I have difficulty with anger, either not having enough or being too explosive with it. Number 17. When I was a child, my parents' needs came first. Number 18. When I was a child, I took on too much adult responsibility. Number 19. When I was a child, my parents would often humiliate me. Number 20. When I was a child, my parents would often ask me for emotional support. Number 21. When I was a child, I wasn't allowed to express my emotions. Number 22. When I was a child, my parents were nasty to each other. Number 23. I can't help but think negatively most of the time. Number 24. I tend to only end relationships when things are beyond bad. Number 25. Angry people and people in authority really scare me. Number 26. I feel really uncomfortable when people touch me. Number 27. I find it very difficult voicing my opinions or saying no. Number 28. I seem to have really weak boundaries. Number 29. Growing up, one of my parents overly confided in me. Number 30. Growing up, my parents would talk badly of each other. Number 31. I find it terrifying leaving my comfort zone. Number 32. I get easily triggered by criticism or a stern tone of voice. Number 33. I seem to procrastinate a lot of the time. Number 34. I can sometimes be very perfectionistic and too hard on myself. Number 35. I often hide my true feelings or emotions. Number 36. I can at times become very obsessive about dysfunctional or toxic individuals. Number 37. I seem to seek constant approval in others. Number 38. I sometimes feel taken advantage of. Number 39. I find it incredibly hard to accept genuine kindness from others. And lastly, number 40. I have been told that I am too dramatic or intense. Now, if you find that you add up a total of 10 yes answers or more, then it is definitely worth your while exploring your current struggles with a professional that understands CPTSD. If you add up your yes answers and your maybe answers and average them, and there seems to be a substantial amount, then it will also be worth exploring these results. Now, I really hope that you have found this CPTSD questionnaire useful. If you find that you did add up a total of 10 yes answers or more, then please leave a comment below. And if you have any questions at all, then feel free to email me and I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. So that's it, guys. Take care and I will see you very soon. Bye bye.